Hello, and welcome to Season 12, Episode 5 of the Cartridge Club's Game of the Month podcast, where we bring together members of the Cartridge Club community to discuss our community playthrough. If you're new to the club or are interested in participating in future months, please join our community Discord, our forums at cartridgeclub.org, or follow us on Twitter at cartridgeclubNA. We love to see the hashtag Cartridge Club used whenever you talk about one of the games we've selected. Additionally, on behalf of the entire Cartridge Club community, I'd like to give a special thanks to our Patreon Club backers. Joel Boyce, Kevin from Canadian Grooves, Dean from Video Game Library, Ross Rengo, Christopher Rohr, and Caleb J. Ross. To our backers and Patreon supporters, we thank you. If you are interested in becoming a Patreon supporter for the Cartridge Club, please look into how to do so at patreon.com/Cartridge Club. All right, everybody, it's January, and that means Sega month here in the Cartridge Club. This time, we're accelerating into the massive hit, Shining Force for the Sega Genesis. I'm Eric. I'm here with my husband, Melissa, and on behalf of our rotating pool of hosts, I'd like to thank you for tuning in.
That's cute.
Yeah, I know. That's just a little joke. I'm
right.
Melissa, my husband, Eric.
Hello.
We're here with a bunch of guests, and the first one up is Captain Algebra.
Hello.
Hi, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And then we have Mr. Welch.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
And Owazrim.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Hello. And of course, Mighty QDawg, Eric. All right, everybody. So we played Shining Force this month. This was a first for me. I was not looking forward to it. I have played RPGs before and enjoyed them, but I've never played an action RPG. And I have heard not so good things about them, so I was a little worried that I would really not like it. But when I started playing it, I got into it. I totally fell for it, and I wanted to continue playing for it, and I couldn't believe it. Captain, why don't you tell us about your experience with this and introduce yourself?
Sure, yeah. So I'm Captain Algebra. I got a YouTube channel. I stream a couple nights a week. I'm going for a complete Genesis collection, which is why I have Shining Force, and hadn't really played it other than testing out when I bought it, because I am not a fan of like turn-based or tactical RPGs. I don't mind action RPGs, but I find it kind of slow and boring to have to just sit there and take hits. I feel like if I'm going to take a hit, I want it to be my fault, not just taking it. And so I was a little apprehensive of playing it this month. And at first I wasn't going to, but then I was like, I might as well at least throw it in and try it out. If I don't like it, I can stop. It's not a big deal. And I will say I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. But at the same time, it doesn't make me want to play other RPGs.
All right. Owazrim, why don't you tell us about your experience with this game?
I played the GBA version. That was the first time for that, but I played the Genesis version several times before that. Beat it as a kid, picked it up as a kid from a store in Utah, I think, when we were visiting my sister, which was a pretty neat little store because they'd let you pop the game in the console and you could actually test it out there and make sure it was one that you wanted.
Master Welch, why don't you tell us about your history?
Shining Force. Well, the year it came out, I had been renting it for pretty much all summer. I rented all summer and fall. And I was probably, 13, maybe 14. And I rented all summer. And I told mom and dad that I wanted it for a Christmas gift and got it as a Christmas gift. And I just played it a lot, over and over from the rental store. And then when I owned it, I played it all the time. I'd stay up playing it all night. I think that I was just intrigued by that being like the first tactical RPG I ever played. And I used to stay up all night. Dad would get up for work early and catch me still playing it, and he'd be like, "You're still up?" A couple times he told me to go to bed, but a few times he just kind of watched and didn't say anything. So,
Wow. That's awesome. All right, Eric.
Well, my experience with the game, I mean, I grew up with the Sega Master System, and so was getting the Sega Visions magazines, and I think I might have read about it in Sega Visions or in Game Pro, and I didn't have a Genesis or anything, so I kind of knew the name. And when we finally did get a Genesis, we ended up getting Shining in the Darkness, which is in the Shining series, but is really a different game entirely. And I had always known about Shining Force, and so I just grabbed it because I was familiar with it, and it looked like an RPG. And to my surprise, it was this turn-based thing, which I had never seen before. So I kind of set it aside. This would have been, in the mid 90s at this point. And I kind of set it aside, and I never played it until this month. I had tried some other strategy RPGs. I got into Advance Wars. I had tried my hand at Final Fantasy Tactics. I was never very good at that. The Fire Emblem series, that came out on the Game Boy initially in the U.S. here, but I never gave it a go until this time, and I found myself really enjoying it too. So this is my first playthrough, and I've owned the game for, it's got to be close to 30 years. This is the first time I've actually sat down with it.
Yeah, I remember like you playing Advanced Wars, and I was like, "Oh, is that a game I would like?" And you're like, "No," because I just wasn't sure that I would like the way the action is, like you said, it's not turn-based, because I like a turn-based RPG. So, but yeah, this one surprised me. I don't know.
I was surprised too when you got it got its hooks in you, and you went for it, and that's
all I could think about was playing it, because you started it over Christmas, and so I was like, oh, okay. And then when I got home for Christmas break, I started it, and I was like, yeah, this is good.
Captain, you were the other person. You said it was your first time playing?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. It's not going to inspire you to play any other RPGs, huh?
No, it wasn't bad. Like I enjoyed my time with it, but I still have the same reservations about RPGs that I had before I played this.
Have you played other RPGs, did you say?
I've played Mario RPG. I've played a few of the Paper Mario games, and I've played Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. So again, not a lot, but that's because I don't really like the genre. I've tried Chrono Trigger a couple times, and I've always quit because I didn't enjoy it. I tried Secret of Mana, but I didn't enjoy that one, so I stopped. So I had Dragon Warrior as a kid because anyone with an NES had Dragon Warrior. And I think I played it for about 5 minutes, but didn't know what to do. So I just popped back in Super Mario Brothers 3 and had more fun with that.
Now, Captain, you said at the beginning that you're going for a complete Genesis set.
Yes.
And as a Sega person and as a Genesis collector, there are 3 big RPGs on the Genesis.
Oh, I
Fantasy
know.
Star, right?
Oh yeah, so, I have all 3 of them.
Okay, but you've never touched them?
I have never touched them, but I do stream Genesis games every Friday, and in 3 weeks I will be playing Phantasy Star 2.
Thank you. Okay, good. I maybe that's all I want to hear. Okay, that's good news. Okay, well, we should talk about Shining Force. Go ahead.
So, Owaz, you played the Game Boy Advance version, you said, this time around?
Yep.
And how is that different?
Oh, there's a lot of little things. There's a lot of quality of life improvements. In the Genesis version, if you have 99 experience points and you get 48 experience points for your next hit because you take out an enemy, you only get that 1 experience point and the other 47 are lost. In the Game Boy version, the rest of it carries over to the next level. So you'll have 47 experience points starting off at the next level, which makes leveling a lot better. It's not as critical as like, okay, well, who's going to kill this guy? Because when I was playing through on the Genesis, I remember going like, all right, let me go see how many experience points this guy has. How many does this one have? All right, now I need to move him around so I can get that guy over there to kill him, because Max doesn't need to kill everybody because so much experience gets wasted that way.
So you might have gotten more experience, but your stats boosting wasn't very good.
That I have that down on there. I don't know if anyone else was able to catch some of the stream. I had The stream in particular kept talking about, I don't know how many levels up. We'll just say a dozen. One stat boost. That's it. One number. So one stat went up 1.
Oh,
Like speed went
That
up
was bad.
1, or defense went up 1. But in that same stream, Luke had one where he gained 15 points in 2 stats. But then I had 2 or 3 have level ups, no stat increases. And then on the last stream, I had 4 or 5, no stat increases. And so I don't know if they tweaked the formula with that, because I know the no stat boost or 1 can happen in the Genesis version, but like it was just compounding, just just like it seemed like every time 1, 1, 1, 1, 2. Anything more than that was just awesome.
It's random, right? Each level you'll get a random number of points randomly distributed amongst 4 or 5 different characteristics, right? You notice that? So, Captain, this is your first time playing. Did you notice this? Did you know the thing about the points, losing the points if you hit 99 or
I did not until someone mentioned in the Discord. I also had I thought you were just gonna you were set to get certain stats boosted at certain levels. That's just kind of what I thought, because there were some levels where you didn't get anything. But my experience with the leveling up is obviously there were some times where I got nothing. But when I got something, it was rarely just 1 stat boost. Usually I got 2 or 3, maybe all 5 sometimes. And that's why it seemed more almost like a pattern. But obviously it is random, like you guys said. But yeah, I had much better stat boosting than Owazrim had.
Yeah, and you can, if you are patient enough, like when I did my hero run where the hero went through and killed everything solo, I had kept going around just for healing. But you save before you're about to level up. So you do a quick save, kill the guy, see what the stat boosts are, reset it, do it again, reset it, do it again until you get something that you liked. And so you could do that with all of your characters if you were keeping track of it. And on both versions, you could do that. You can reset it, load the game back up, go back in, and one more time. There's an extra stat in the Game Boy Advance version. You can gain magic resistance as well.
That's nice.
But because they made magic much more a part of it. There were some enemies that were immune to magic, completely immune, but there were some that had different weaknesses to it.
Let me ask Master Welch. You said you played the game all through the night as a kid.
Yeah.
You must have known about this leveling up thing. How did you deal with it as a kid? Did you farm it the way Owazrim was talking about, or did you just take what you got?
I guess I always kind of thought that maybe it was the same to a certain point, but the way I would farm, I would just do multiple battles, like the same battle over and over, maybe 3 times each run.
Grinding, right?
Yep, grinding. Yeah. Or as I did a few playthroughs on it, I would start letting certain characters just get defeated. So you would still keep them in your party as a defeated member and go into a battle, and you could specifically target those guys a lot more often to make attacks or heals. So that way you can basically get them to grind their grind cycle even quicker. And one time I took Max all the way to level 99 by doing that. And I did it with a healer. I think I kept a healer on the field with me. And like Owaz was saying, just keep a healer with you. And you can pretty much grind with Max. Once he hits a certain level, he can pretty much kill everything, because there's a certain point where you get Max so high, or any character for that matter. And I figured it out when I was younger, when I was playing it just this last time. I just beat it the other night again for another run. And it always slips your mind a little bit how it worked, but their attack number and then your defense number, once you get that to the same level, it's 1-to-1, like in stat numbers.
Yeah.
And like the laser eyes, I got Max so high that the laser eyes would hit you just 1 hit point.
Wow.
That's all they would do. Yep, 1 hit point. So you can, the stats are actually really it's not just a number, you can actually match your enemies and make them, pretty much obsolete in the way they hit you. So I guess you'll just have to, a good way to do that is, play that first chapter and grind out against the goblins and, get your defense up to what the goblins have. And then you'll see they'll only hit you for one at that point. And yeah. So, I mean, it took me a few playthroughs when I was younger to figure that out. And then over the years,
Oh, sure.
you just knew how the enemies would react in every battle. And so you knew where to, stand and all that when you made your moves.
Did you guys grind a lot?
I did at first. Obviously, I don't have a ton of experience with RPGs, but I feel like that is well known about RPGs, right? You typically have to grind. So I started off the game. At first, I didn't know you could egress. I didn't know about that. But when Tesseract had posted his playthrough in the Discord, I watched it, and they were talking about it immediately, like being able to redo a battle. And so I played the first battle, and I finished it, and I was like, oh, if I go back to that spot, does it go again? And it didn't. I was like, okay, well, how do I redo them? And that's when I looked up about egressing and stuff. And so early on, I would say almost every battle I would do 2 or 3 times. That, I think, helped out a lot because I found the game relatively easy. It got a little bit harder towards the end, but I felt like I was leveled up enough because of that grinding that for the most part, I didn't have to worry about strategy too much. I could take out guys pretty easily.
Melissa, you want to comment on grinding? We both did, right?
We both did. Yeah, there were certain parts where I would grind, like the 3rd chapter, the laser eye. I grinded there.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that.
Also, I don't know, I wanted to maybe talk about promotions too, like you were talking about, leveling up and whatnot. It seemed like the promotions, if you read about it, different people had different ideas of how to promote. So I thought that was kind of weird too, because I was just like, I didn't have time I was like, I'm not going to figure out like the ideal way. I just like promoted everybody right after they got to like 10.
I wanted to ask Owazrim, it seems there's a lot of different opinions. What do you know about it?
I remember the first time playing through it, I was like, oh, promotion, that's awesome. Because, once you do it, you're like, oh, the character gets a totally different sprite. It looks awesome. So much better. Mm-hmm. But the first time you go into attack and you're like, oh, and you're like, they did less damage. They took more damage. And so promoting in the first one is painful because you get your character leveled up and then all of a sudden they get smacked down for being promoted. And you're like, that's not what promotions are supposed to be. It's supposed to be an improvement. Like the first time I played through it, 10 or 11, they were all getting promoted. Boom, 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 boom. And then after I learned that, I was like, okay, now push it 15 to 20, wait and promote them later if you can. And I actually try to do that this playthrough. But I got to a battle, chapter 6, I think it was the second battle. I wasn't doing damage to the characters, but I also, I didn't do hardly any grinding. I wasn't buying weapons, so their stats weren't getting boosted from those. Yeah. And so I was like, and chapter 6, if you're not promoted, you can't equip any of the stuff the shops are selling now because it all has to be for that next class for that upgrade. Right. So I had characters at 15, at 17, at 13. And I was like, everyone's getting promoted. Let's get some weapons on these people, and let's do some grinding on this one so that I can actually go over there and smack the boss for more than 1 point, 2 points, or 3 points of damage. And so I did that for, I think it was a stream, and then later that night and the next night I was actually on a handheld, sitting there just grinding before I went to bed. But promoting in the first one, it's better if you wait longer so that you can so that when you get promoted, it doesn't hurt as much.
You can only go up to level 20, and then you're capped until you do a promotion, right?
Yep.
But now after you promote, there's no level cap. I mean, Master Welch said he got a guy, Max, the main character, up to 99, right? So is that right? If you're capped at 20.
You keep going because I pulled up the hero run really quick, and I was 43, and I was one-shotting everything.
Level? Wow.
Mine was only up to 13.
Captain, how did you deal with promotions?
So I'm going to admit it. I did look kind of some stuff up as I was playing because I knew you could promote at level 10 because I've got the manual. So I read the manual before I played and it said 10 or higher. But then I was kind of curious about why it said higher. And I was kind of reading up on what most people did. And there were some people who was like, I always wait till I'm level 20 before I promote. And at first I was going to do that. But then I was like, I don't feel like doing as much grinding as I've been doing, especially since I wasn't always good at the beginning of choosing good battles to grind on. I was grinding all of them. So there are some battles that are huge where you barely move. So it just takes a long time. whereas there's other battles that are smaller. It's better for grinding. And so eventually I'm just like, okay, if I get to level 15, I'm just going to start promoting. At that point, all my characters weren't in the same level as in the beginning of the game, because at first I was trying to keep everyone the same level. And so like I didn't notice as much like the decrease in strength and stuff because I was only promoting a couple at a time. And that seemed to work out really well.
I just promote everybody as soon as I can. Somebody told me in the chat I was actually getting to where I was starting to promote my characters in the third chapter where you get Xylo. I was in the Abbey there and somebody jumped in my stream and they're like, yeah, man, you want to promote all your damage dealers at level 10, but you want to take your magicians and healer, your wizards and your healers all the way up to level 20 and then promote them because it helps with their rollover. And that's one thing I never figured out or even looked at is how much it scales you back and then go through, like you could save it, let's say, get a guy up to 15 and then promote him, and then save it there and then basically create 2 save states. So you could see what the gain is at level 10 versus level 15, the rollback. So it probably would have benefited everybody to take them to 20, but that game, there is not enough time realistically to level everybody. Like you end up focusing on a few in the long run. I timed it. I think I spent probably about 40 hours, 30 to 40 hours on that run. And just this last one, and you would spend way more, double that if you tried to level your entire crew, like to higher stats,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
like especially some of those later level guys.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys all got Hanzu. If you know who Hanzu is, he's one of the hidden guys.
Yeah.
And Hanzu, he actually has Diesel, and you can level up his Diesel skill to where it's like level 2, where when I was playing it, I was testing it on I remember it could take down those blue dragons in the last few battles that are pretty tough. It could take them out. So with a very high percentage. And I think I was doing that with Diesel level 2.
Really?
Wow.
I didn't use that spell at all.
Yeah, I didn't either.
We should talk about magic.
I didn't find Hanzu.
Yeah,
Let's talk.
The D-Soul. Like I've
Yeah.
never in Shining in the Darkness, I didn't have luck using it. In Shining Force, I didn't have luck using it as a kid, so I never use it.
Yeah, I did. I tried it a couple times too, and I think it worked on one time. I don't remember what enemy it was. It was like a lower level enemy, but then I was like, this isn't going to work like on half of them because some of the enemies too, like they were like already dead. Like I was like, well, that's definitely not going to work on them. So I was just like, I'm not wasting my magic points on D-Soul. But
I figured out on Diesel too, just since we're talking about that, in Shining in the Darkness, I found some specific characters it works on, like every time.
Oh, that's good.
And the benefit of that is it's a one hit,
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that highlights, there's 5 of us here. One person uses it, the rest of us don't.
Yeah.
But I think that's one of the things that is great about Shining Force is there's such a variety of characters and how they attack and whatnot.
Right.
So like there's multiple strategies you can have for your party, and there's a lot of variety and replayability if you want to just try out different party mixes and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, there were some characters where I didn't even use them. I'm like,
Yep.
like there was like, I can't remember how many, was there like 4 or 5 of the centaurs, of the knights.
Yep.
I was like, I don't need 5 knights in my party. Like, I don't want that. So some of them I didn't even use. And like Eric and I talked about this too, like the Xylo character, he kept wanting like his Xylo character to be really good. I was like, oh, Xylo is great. And he's like, it's not great for me. And Eric was like, which character was it? Gong was one of Eric's favorite characters. And I'm using him like at the end, but he's not my favorite. But Eric was like, oh, Gong's like a powerhouse. I'm like, no.
Let's.
Like,
I want to do a run with just Gong.
Oh my
You have to
goodness.
level max up to 10 so you can promote him.
Uh-huh.
I want to see if you can just go around and kill everything with Gong, because I remember as a kid, I don't know what it was, but at some point he got stronger than everybody else, so he could heal and he could hit people, and he was taking bosses toe to toe, 1-on-1
Wow.
Yeah.
by himself, and he wasn't
No,
even
not
having
for
to
me.
heal.
Yeah.
He's one of the only characters that can attack, good attack, and has heal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Go ahead.
But I did not use him this run because I could not get him leveled up quick enough.
Oh,
But I also started trying to switch people out that I usually use just to play with some different characters.
Yeah. At first, whenever I got a new character, I would always put them in the party just to see what they could do. But eventually, I just stopped. I was like, no, I've got the characters I'm comfortable with. I'm going to still do it. I know, Melissa, you mentioned the knights. I really liked the knights. So I think I did have 3 or 4 in my party at all time. And I think around the time that you get Ernest, that's when I stopped. Because I think Ernest was just lower than all my other knights. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not really grinding anymore. I don't feel like getting him caught up to where everybody else is. So at that point, I just stuck with, I think it was May, Pell, and who was the other one?
There's Ken and Arthur.
It wasn't
Um,
Ken. I think it was Ken.
Vancouver.
Ken's a good one.
There's
I think it was-
Vancar.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
and
I don't
even what is it, Kikuchi? He's not on a horse, but I think he's basically a knight.
Yeah. Is Vankar one you get for sure, or is that one you can miss?
I think that's one you can miss.
I was just saying, 'cause I don't
Oh,
remember
okay.
Vankar or
Oh,
Kokichi.
okay.
But yeah, I think it was Ken, May, and Pell that I used as my knights.
Did you
It's funny
get
'cause
Gunts?
Ernest.
I
is
did
the only
get Guns.
knight
Yep, I
used.
used him for a while.
Yeah, Gunts is pretty good too.
Mhm.
Gunts is fun if you can get him up.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ernest is the only knight I had in my party. Once I got him, I'd start dropping others out because didn't usually use them, and he actually turned out to be pretty good.
Yeah. I did read up about characters after I beat the game, and I guess Ernest is supposed to be a pretty good one. So looking back, I'm like, oh, I wish I would have kept him in and leveled him up. But I mean, I did fine with the knights that I had.
Yeah.
So, did you guys use your knights as direct attack, or did you use their ability to do distance attack?
It depended on the weapon I had. I'm very. I mean, obviously, my experience with RPGs is low, but when I play an RPG, if I get a chance to level up my weapon, I do it. And so I think for the knights, you could use either spears or lances. And so the spears were distance and the lances were not. And so obviously, like if the spear was more powerful, I would use it. But then as soon as a lance came up that was more powerful, I would grab that. So, I mean, I'd rather attack from distance. But I think they end up with their best weapons are lances. So you have to be up close anyways.
I started doing a strategy with the knights. You upgrade, you get the lance, you keep the lance, and you drop the other thing.
The spear.
Spear.
Mhm.
Sorry, you keep the spear and you drop the lance, and then when you get the next lance, you keep the spear because you can equip them as you need.
Yeah, I would do
You can
that.
be ranged, like if you can't get up to the guy, but you're one space away, you're like, oh well, let me equip this thing and chuck it at him.
And I would do that if you had more than 4 spaces of inventory.
Oh man.
But
I
that's
want
all
to
you
talk
got.
about inventory.
So it's like I'm like, so as soon as I got a better weapon, I sold the old one. Like I just wanted the gold. And so it's like if I had more space, I would have thought about doing that. But
yeah. So on the Game Boy Advance version, you have more than 4 spaces. And
I
not only that,
noticed.
you have like your equipment slots and then you have item slots.
Extras.
And so like Max, he had his sword and he had 3 rings equipped and he still had inventory space for items. And because you're walking around the world, Max is the one opening all the chests. So if his inventory is full, or whenever the inventory is full of the person opening a chest, it goes into an item box. So you don't have to be like, all right, let me back out, go into my inventory, take this thing, give it to this person, open this thing, then grab it and give it to somebody else. So I have that extra spot in case I need it.
that was so annoying. I hate
Yeah.
That
I would.
inventory management was
Quality life
terrible.
improvements for the GBA version.
Yeah,
Good.
I would give my extra stuff like sometimes to the other characters that I wasn't, playing in my
The ones that
party.
you leave dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In my mind, any of the other characters, all they ever needed was a weapon and a ring. And then all the healing items, early on, having the medical herb maybe on somebody's a good idea. And eventually that item gets phased out because it only heals, I think, up to 10 hit points. But give the seeds to the healers, like give them all healing seeds, because they still get 10 experience when they heal with an item versus just a spell. Because if you're guaranteed like even 1 hit point, if you heal them, you get 10 experience. And that's the hard part, is getting your healers healed. So you gotta get them healing like 1 sliver hit point. You know, like their mobility's slower too.
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna be like, you know, a guy hanging them back and say, all right, I'm gonna heal him for 1 point just to get the experience.
Oh,
And
yeah,
maybe
I did
heroes,
that. Yeah.
you know, just let them fall back. You know, like let them go up front, fall back to the healer. The healer will do its work. Bump them back up, you know, cycle your guys around a little bit. And
Yeah.
because like later on, I believe Chris learns aura, but I did not level her high enough, but she is good. Chris is actually a really good healer, because actually when you get her, she tells you, she's like, I can heal and I can fight. So if you use her as a fighter too, she actually hits harder than the other healers.
Okay.
Oh, that's good to know.
I
They'll
was
tell you-
using
they'll
her.
tell you when they're talking, you know, what they're kind of capable of.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she gets aura, and so does Gong if you get them high enough.
Okay.
And then I think Gong gets a high level aura.
That'd be
I
aura,
like that
aura
stuff.
3.
I know
Yeah.
Torasu
Or
he has
2.
aura 2 right now for me.
Yeah,
Is
I
that
used
the cross or
Karasu.
the wide space? It's like 4 out from on the straight out. It'll be 4 or 5 squares
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
him
Yeah.
in all directions, and then it's like shaved down by 1 every other section in
when you're going
between, because
diagonal.
it goes like that back up to
Yeah.
5.
Can we go through? I wanted to talk about some of the characters. We kind of hit on some of them, but I'll start with
Favorites.
Master Welch. Yeah, who did you use this playthrough? Or who are some of your favorites? Like who was? I had the same experience where I was grinding everybody, but at the end of the game, I'm like, look, I'm going to pick my 10 or 12 or whatever it is favorite people and bring them with for like the last 3 battles or 4 battles or whatever. Who was in your party?
This last playthrough, you know, and I play it different now than I did when I was younger. I had Xylo. I had I was using Aleph, and like right before I got to the end, I had Aleph's bolt spell go up a level, so it does extreme damage. I've leveled Aleph's spells to the max before the bolt level 4, and that's huge. You know, when she hits as hard as your strongest guys with a spell. I had Tereso in there, low. I had Low's heal level 4. I believe he had level 4 heal. And then I had Pell, in which I put him in really late, but Pell gains his stats gain real fast. Like he was hitting pretty good for level 5 at the end game.
Yeah, Pell's
Level
pretty
5 or 6, and his hit points were decent. So I just put him in there. I was using Gort, Luke. I had Hanzu and Musashi. Musashi's probably one of my favorite. I mean, he hits extremely hard, and he was probably like right up with Max, like at end game there.
Yeah,
The only thing
Musashi's
about
a beast.
Yeah, the only thing about Musashi I do not like is he misses a lot. And I even put a mobility ring on him, but I probably should have put a speed ring in this. I think the speed ring is they're guaranteed to hit, you know, versus miss. And who else? A few others, but Musashi, Hanzu, Xylo, Pell, Teresu, and Aleph are like currently probably like some of my favorites to use in the game. I've even, you know, took the time and Lyle's pretty good too, but you got to get him leveled up, but he's kind of hard. And actually I took Diane to the end game, and Diane, I figured out with her, and I knew this, and I wish I would have just focused on Lyle, but Diane is a defensive archer. Like every time she would level, probably like the last 5 levels I gained on her, it was all defense boost. Like defense +2, defense +3, like every time. So she's a defensive archer, so she can take a lot of damage. And you know, I think Gunts is really good. There's a lot of good characters, you know.
Yeah.
Kokichi, he's hard to level, but if you take the time to do it, you know, his mobility is really good. Adam, he's the other one. Adam, he is really hard to level.
He's the robot.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. But in the past, I'd leveled Adam up to where he would do his secondary attack, and it's the same with Blue the dragon. He does a secondary attack where he'll blow like a flame out, like when you're fighting some of the dragons and like the chimeras and like the hellhounds and stuff. They have the 2 attacks. So Adam has the 2 different variant attacks, and so does Blue. Like they each have a physical and like a magical type attack. Like Adam's is a laser. He shoots a laser. So I don't know. They're all pretty cool, man. It's just play it a few times, get to know who you like, and then start experimenting with others. And then you're like, oh, wait a minute,
There's a lot of variety of characters here. Yeah. Some of which are secret, which I want to talk about later. But what about you, Captain? Any additions?
I mean, you talked about Musashi. Musashi was my favorite. But I have to admit, I didn't have any trouble with him hitting. Like, he hit almost every time for me. It was very rare that he missed. And he is extremely strong and pretty good defense. And so, like, I would use him most of the time.
Where did you get him?
Yeah,
I didn't get Musashi. I don't even know what you're talking about.
I don't even remember. Like I said, I just got lucky that I got him.
Is he as hidden? I mean,
yes, he is hidden.
He is hidden.
There's some like posters on a wall you have to read, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a poster on a wall you have to read, and then he'll say he'll join you.
Yeah. Oh. And so it's completely by random. So, one that Master Welch didn't talk about was Domingo. So he's another one that's a secret, and I fortunately got. And Domingo can fly, so he's got great movement, and his spells are pretty powerful, and he doesn't take a ton of damage. And so he was one. It was kind of on my front line a lot. I really enjoyed him. I'm trying to think. I like Diane. She's the archer I use. Like I said, I try to have a few people that could fight up close, but then a few people that I could use from distance. I liked Balbaroy because he could move around and stuff because he could fly. I tried to use Balbaroy and Eamon both at the same time, but Eamon kind of sucked. I'll be honest.
Oh yeah,
she never did any damage. I'm like, this is a waste of my time. I'm not keeping her in my party. Like, get out. I also read that Blue was supposed to be pretty good, and same thing. I would try to use Blue, and it would do 1 point of damage every time.
1 point damage.
Yep. Yes. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Yeah. This is not worth my time.
I tried so hard. So hard to have him like be my party and level him up and have him be the final kill, and it didn't matter.
Couldn't do it either. I could not get Blue to be useful. He's the flying dragon, right? He's the dragon.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. What about you, Owazrim? Anybody you want to call out that we haven't talked about, or any that we have even?
Like I already mentioned, I used Ernest, and I tried using Balbury. I could not keep him leveled up. He I don't know what it was with the Game Boy Advance. Like they went straight for him every time, and I wasn't like, oh well, he died. I'm gonna fight this battle, and then I'll egress out and bring him back in. It's like, no, I'm going through this battle and go to the next one. And so I got to a point where he was doing 1 point of damage for his hits. And I kept him in the party the whole time. I was like, I know I can level him up if I've got the time to do it. I didn't have the time to do it. I kept pushing forward. I was like, all right, the last battle, I'm gonna take him. I'm gonna put him out around, go put him up and stick him on a spot where he won't get hit. And they took him out like nothing. And I was like, oh God, fine. But I used Hans, and that's the first. Like I don't use Hans. But I got him leveled up and he was working well. And I think some of this was like there was a change in some of the characters for the Game Boy Advance. Like Gort, I always used Gort when I play through. But this time I used Luke and Gort, and Luke was better. Gort was missing. Gort was several levels behind Luke. Luke tore it up compared to Gort, and I was like, "What did they do to my boy?"
Yeah, Gort was my boy too. He was always. Gort.
But the Game Boy Advance has 3 more characters.
Oh, okay. Tell us.
And so, as you're playing through the game, the end of chapter 1, 2, and 3, there's an extra battle. And so you have your Shining Force off doing their thing, and these 3, and sometimes 2 of them, are going through and fighting these battles, trying to catch up to your guys.
Interesting.
And they finally catch up in chapter 4, and so they join your party. And so I use Narsha, who's big at like buffing your characters, your attack, your magic. Like she can buff your magic casters. So all of a sudden they're doing like 50% more damage with magic, which is awesome. And it was like you did level 2, and so you could get 3 or 4 of them if you got them close enough. That was great. And then one called Zukia, and I don't know what he was other than he was awesome. Like he was just taking stuff. Like he had a thing where if he got hit enough, there was a chance that he would be like, boom, Hulk mode, and he'd start killing stuff in one hit. Stronger than everybody when he goes into that rage mode. The third character I didn't use him was Moloch, and I can talk more about him later because he has a totally different ability than anybody else in the entire game. Like I didn't use him this first go round, and then I started another game and I was like, all right, let me put him in there, see how it goes. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what I'm doing with this guy. And it's just such like boom, because you get to borrow characters' abilities and stuff.
If I can, I want to talk about the secret characters real quick, or the missable characters. We mentioned Musashi, which Melissa and I missed. I think someone, and Domingo, which Captain and Melissa and I know we each got. That was a very valuable character. Someone mentioned Kokichi, which I missed.
I didn't get it.
We've talked about Gong. Gong is the first one, and I played the game. I lost my save when I was first playing it in like chapter 3 or something. I had to start over. I missed Gong. Did you guys all get Gong at the beginning? He's kind of off to the side, and you have to.
The first time I played, I didn't get Gong. In the subsequent playthroughs, I was like, oh, let me go talk to this guy. Oh, yeah. So yeah, he's missable. There's actually lots of characters that are missable if you don't talk to them, sometimes repeatedly.
Really? Okay.
Because actually, Gunts, you have to talk to him. You have to talk to the inventor, both of them several times.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And there's one more I want to mention, which no one has brought up yet, which is I think you know what I'm talking about. Owazrim. Who? What is it?
Yogurt.
Yes.
Yeah, I got Yogurt.
You did?
Did anybody put him in the party and try to use him?
No.
I have.
Does anybody know what's special about Yogurt?
So tell me about him. Yeah, I didn't get him.
He hits for 1 hit point. Always. 1 hit point. So, and I think he gains like 1 experience with that 1 hit point. So, but if you get him to get a kill on somebody, he gets a regular. But when you level up, you get a Yogurt ring.
Yep.
And he still has 1 point of damage. Always. But you give that ring to somebody, and now they can be Yogurt too. And so you could have a party of Yogurts if you wanted to.
All doing 1 point of damage.
All doing 1 point of damage. I'm sure you could somehow figure out a way to actually beat the game like that.
All right, Owazrim, you did your hero run. I want to see your Yogurt run.
That's a stream right there. All Yogurts.
Yeah.
That would have me pulling my hair out of my head if I had him.
Does he have a lot of defense?
No,
I think he gets hit with one.
I think like I used him like years and years ago. I want to see what this guy's about, because you have to talk to him. Well, you talk to him, then you have to go up into a corner, and he makes a little screechy noise. And then I think the 3rd or the 4th time you meet him is when he finally joins the party. But I think it's 1 attack, 1 defense. 1 speed, 1 movement. Like he's a mascot, and boy howdy, he's just gimped. He's hobbled worse than anything. It's just like a joke character, but it's just funny. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna go get Yogurt and throw him in the party, and it's like, for this ring, you put it on the card. Oh, now I've got 2 Yogurts. Oh, that's not good.
Master Welch, did you have something you wanted to mention about Yogurt?
No, I was going to mention what Owa said about the ring. If you get a level with him, if you let him take somebody down who's got 1 hit point, he'll drop a ring in his inventory.
I actually want to talk about the rings a little bit, because I only found a couple of them, and I'm getting the impression from you guys that I missed quite a few. What's the deal with these rings? Where'd you find them? How do you get them? How do you use them?
You could have enemies would drop them. They'd be in chests. I think that's a 2 for the Genesis version. On the Game Boy Advance version, you could buy some.
Okay. Like I used a ring once. I had a white ring and I used it and it cracked. And then I looked it up and it's like, well, you could lose the ring permanently if you keep using it.
Yeah, but I think if you go to the weapon dealers, you can repair it.
Yeah. Which I did repair it, but then I was reluctant to use it again because it was like,
I'm going to save this for a special situation.
Yes, exactly.
And then you never do.
RPG.
So you never use it again.
I never use it again. So there's a white ring, I think, or a light ring.
Oh,
What else
yeah.
is that? A
There's
power
white,
ring? Was it?
There's
black,
a power
Power,
ring.
defense, speed.
Yeah, all of your stats. There's
I
one
don't
for
think
those.
I have a defense one. I have a speed one, a power one. I have the mobility ring, which lets you move further.
Mhm.
Yep.
And then I got a dark ring, but I never used it because there's like there's like several like dark or evil,
Cursed?
like
Yep.
cursed
Yep.
There's cursed items.
weapons.
There are cursed items.
But I never used them because I read that you get cursed, and I was like, I don't want to deal with that.
What is it? What happens when you get cursed?
It's
Like
just you can't unequip it.
Yeah, and then I think your health goes. Doesn't it take away
Yeah,
health like
you
every
randomly
time?
lose more health.
Yeah.
It depends on the item.
Yeah, because I think I had Ken. Ken had a weapon that was cursed, but it didn't take health away all the time. So like I felt like it was still worthwhile to use.
You can never equip it in the whole game?
No, you could go to a priest. The
And
priest,
get-
I think, could
Get cleansed or
uncurse you.
something.
Okay.
But like if you equip a cursed weapon, like you generally the attack is higher than the other weapons that you can get at that time.
Yeah.
But there's a greater chance that you're just going to miss more.
Okay.
Or not even attack. Like some of them say that you're like frozen and you're stunned basically and can't move or
It's like this is really good, but there's this drawback that can happen and really hinder you and or your party depending on how many of them you equip. That might be an interesting run. Like everyone has cursed weapons.
Well, if you go to like when you fight Mashayla, there's three cursed things in there. There's a couple of rings and a weapon.
Yeah.
Really?
And the thing about those items is they're usable. Like if you're not worried about them getting torched or anything like that, or if you just want to keep it like, let's say you got a knight who can't cast spells, you can get like a bolt level 2 out of one of the rings. You can use that as a backup.
Yeah, I did
Pay
that
attention to the dialogue though, because like when you can speed through it, don't speed through that if you're using that ring, because if it cracks and you don't want to lose it, the next time you use it, it could just. I remember the first time I ever did that, I was using the fire axe. What is that one? Is that what it's called?
Yeah. It passed the level 2 blaze.
Yeah, so I would use that a lot, and I was like, oh, I can just keep using this. This is awesome. And then
Luke
it
running
said
around
it
with an axe on
crumbled.
fire, and then they're like,
Yeah, it said it crumbled, and I'm like, no, dude, I lost that axe. And that thing hit hard too. You get it in the battle with Elliot.
First time playing through, you go and you check all of your enemy stats, and you're like, wait, why does this guy have this crazy axe on him? Because I think it was one of the lizard men or something.
Yep.
And you go over there and you kill him, and there's a chance it'll drop. I don't know if there's a guaranteed way to make it happen, but there's a chance that the enemies can drop special weapons.
I did that battle a few times, and I think I end up with a fire axe each time. Like every time that lizard man dropped it. So I had 3 fire axes.
Nice.
Dual wield.
If only.
Yeah, if only, yeah.
But honestly, I didn't know it did blaze. I only attacked regularly with it.
Yeah, I didn't know you could use it. Like, what did you do? Just like you use it?
Yeah, item use, and then it's like pulled. All of a sudden, boom! You've got like a blaze 2 plus crosshair.
Wow.
You can drop on people. And so you've got one of your melee characters who at the time is dropping a lot of damage on multiple characters. It's awesome. It's like the first time Teo gets blaze level 2, you cast it, you're like, what is this? And it hits a bunch of guys like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we talked a little bit about the characters. We talked. Where do you want to go from here? I have.
Do you want to hear about the third character for the GBA?
Yeah, sure. Go for it. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. What is his name? Moloch. So as you're playing through the game, you find cards. The cards are of the heroes and the bad guys. And so you equip these cards, and then you can either use an ability of it. You can do a move. So you can actually take your move and give it to that character so they can move twice in that round. You can imitate, which makes a copy of that character. From what I saw, it's like you make a copy of that character at that time or when you'd pick them up if they're not yet in your party. Like I used Max's ability. Oh, and Max has this ability in Game Boy Advance version. He doesn't get lightning. He gets something called, it's Nova or Supernova. I forget which. But it's like he's talking to a satellite, and all of a sudden a beam of energy just comes down and burns the ground. And it was awesome. It did tons of damage. It cost 18 mana for level 1 and 20 for level 2. And it would burn through enemies. But using that ability, you can get it to Moloch. And so when he attacks, his normal attack, he's just like, poof, and this beam just comes down and disintegrates people.
Wow.
And so like you can gain the abilities of anybody that you get a card from, and I don't remember how many cards. There's quite a few cards. I didn't go out of my way looking for them because like, you know what, this is a new mechanic, and I don't know if I have the time to figure it out. So I went through it. The GBA version also has New Game Plus, so you go through it again. All of the enemies get a boost, and
Interesting.
from what I read, you can go through and do that several times.
Interesting.
And Moloch joins your party in the first chapter before the first battle. He summons you and is like, hey, we're here, we're doing this, and we're trying to come to you. But in the second one, he's like, yeah, I'll see you at HQ.
Okay.
Okay.
Right from the start, huh?
Yeah. On the second playthrough. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much you could do with these abilities, because once you get one character that's like way outpacing everybody else, you're like, oh, well, I'm going to make a copy of him. If you've got the card, you're like, all right, imitate, boom. And now you've got two of them coming up and just tearing through people. And when they die, they're just gone. And you can only have one imitate or duplicate on the field at the time. But as soon as one of them is gone, you're like, oh, well, here, I'm going to use this guy now. Oh, I need magic. I'm going to use this guy. But you can only use it once. Once you've used that card for that battle, it's done. You can use it again if you egress and come back in, you can use it again, but it's a one-time use per battle.
I wonder if that's something that they had done for one of the later games in the series, and then they brought back when they made the Game Boy. Do you know? Was that something they invented for the Game Boy version, or was that something that some other Shining Force had done, and then they retrofit it back into Shining Force 1 on the Game Boy?
You know, I don't know.
That's interesting.
I'm not familiar with a bunch of the stuff that came
a
couple generations after. It was probably that card things were really popular at the time.
Yeah,
so
sure.
They just threw that in there. And I mean, Moloch could be just a powerhouse.
The Game Boy version sounds pretty interesting.
Can I mention just a few more changes?
Of course. Yeah, please.
So in the GBA, like when on the Genesis, when it's your character's the turn, you just start moving. In the GBA, you had to select your character and then you could move, which was an interesting change. Not one like I liked, like several times it caught me because I'd start moving it and all of a sudden the cursors go across the screen. And when you go to the option box, there's an option to look at the turn order, so you can go look and see who's going to be attacking next.
Oh, that would be useful.
Strategize more. I didn't use it because I grew up with the Genesis version. I was like, well, I don't need that. If I die, I die. Or he dies. He dies. Max gets the Nova spell instead of the lightning spell. He gets it early on, and he gets enough mana points to use it frequently, which is really cool.
Nice.
Something that's interesting is like they made changes, like a little tutorial, like at the very beginning of the game, when after you meet Varios and you start walking out, in the GBA version, the priest goes, hey, wait, do you know about, or while you're out in your travels, don't forget to record your adventures. Go talk to the priest and let them record your adventure. And when you're leaving the castle to go gather the start of the force, like the guys don't come and join you. A knight comes and goes, oh, hey, let me show you where the HQ is. And he walks you over to the HQ and they join you there.
I see.
Yeah, they made changes in the HQ also. Like the people you have in your party aren't in a little area. They're all just wandering around. Doesn't matter if they're in your party or not. Back at Shade Abbey, I don't know if you guys noticed, as you start going through that towards the Abbey, the people start following you. And like they're blocking your way, so you can't go back down into the little entry area. They did away with that. But yeah, that's just some of the stuff. There's lots of like little quality of life improvements and stuff.
In my brief investigation, there's secrets in the game, and I never found them, but Melissa found one.
I found one. I happened to be kind of reading through a game fact as I was playing early on.
Happened to be.
Well,
you mean your phone accidentally opened up to Google and accidentally typed in Shining Force strategy? Yeah, go ahead. I'm teasing. Go ahead.
I know. There is like chests. Like there's no way to know they're there. At least this one, like I wouldn't know. There's, like when we got the ninja character Hanzu, you were like, why is there a flower in that bush or
That
the
one
tree or
bush,
whatever?
yeah.
Right? Like, so you're like, oh, that looks weird. But I found this chest, hidden in the wall, but there was nothing on the screen where I would think, oh, I should go search that area because it looks a little off. So it was like an outfit for Tao, and when you put it on, then she's in a little bikini when she's fighting, like when she's like walking in the, when you're in the battle, then she's in a little bikini. But then when she actually does her fight, she's in her regular like gear. So it was only when she's like walking around.
Just on the overworld map or whatever.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that there was another one where I think it was like another outfit. I think they're just like outfits or something.
Yeah.
There was another one where the laser eye, in the third battle, that laser eye one. If you go down where there were like 2 of the gargoyles or whatever, you're supposed to like search to the left of that area and there would be something in there too. But I moved on before I could get over there, so I didn't get it.
Did you guys find any of those things?
No. Watched a video on Thursday or Friday and saw that and I was like, what? I was like, it's just a cosmetic thing. It's like, okay, that's kind of neat. And like, you know what? I don't really care.
Back in the Genesis days.
Time to do it. Because I think that one on with the laser eye, like you have to use one of the flyers to get over there and get it.
Yeah.
Because,
yeah.
It's weird. I mean, it's kind of neat, but it's like like you said, there's no indication of where these things are. And that you need to go here, go search that wall right there back behind this thing.
Yeah.
Look, there it is. And one of them, there's one on one of the boat levels. But again, like, okay, unless you're going to take the time to go like, oh, let me go search this square. And then this square. And then this square. And make sure you have a flyer so you can check out the squares that you can't actually walk to. It's like, that's crazy.
One of them's actually, it's the designer's face. It's called like the Kenji or something.
Mm-hmm.
I got it on my last playthrough. And it's his face in that little emblem, and you can see it. I think that's the designer's face or the director of the game. There's 7 in all. I only knew about that probably about 10 years ago. I'd read about it. In this last run, I went through and got them all. I just remembered where they are, all of them. The other costumes for Anri, and hers isn't a bikini. Hers is like a mini skirt.
Interesting. We've talked about the laser cannon, which is, I think, a battle that sticks out in a lot of people's mind. Let's talk about that briefly. But that was a very interesting battle, and I kind of figured out what was going to be happening, and I was hoping that we would see more things like that. The laser cannon was a one-off. It was a thing that was going to blast across the screen. I think it was going to damage everything in its path, but it gave you a countdown. And so many turns, this thing is. It kept counting down, and I'm like, oh man, when this thing hits 0, it's not going to be good. I don't want to be anywhere near this thing. And that's exactly what happened. It just blasted everybody. So that was an interesting battle, but it was disappointing to me because it was kind of a one-off. I don't think they did anything like that again. Am I wrong? Does anybody have any battles that stick out or even the laser cannon they want to talk about?
Well, with the laser cannon, I kind of knew it was coming because Owazrim was streaming, and we were kind of talking about where I was and stuff. And he wasn't like giving anything away, but he started saying something. So I kind of knew that the next battle was going to be something interesting. And so that was the laser eye battle. And same thing, I noticed it was counting down, and then all of a sudden it hit most of my people. I'm like, okay, so I just got to kind of stay away from it, whatever. I still, it didn't cause me to have to egress or to lose that battle. I still got through it fine. So I had no trouble with that battle. But I would say the only battle I had trouble with was Michaela at the end of chapter 6.
Yes.
I hate that battle. I think I had to do it 4 times. The first time was because I wasn't ready for it. So because I had lost, I think I only had 1 magic user in my party. I had 2. One of them died though. And then right before then, my knights had upgraded, I think, to chrome lances. So they didn't have any more spears to attack from far away. And I think the only flyer I had was Balbaroy at the time. So I don't remember if I had Domingo yet or not. And so I got to her, and I just did not have the firepower to battle it out with her. So then I egressed, went back in, and first I tried to find spears, but it was at a point in the game where I couldn't find any more spears. Like, there's only 2 towns you could go to, and only one of them had weapons, and it was only the lances. So I was like, okay, well, that doesn't help.
Yeah.
So I had to make sure I had all, Balbaroy was there, and then my 2 magic users. And then I basically had like one person in front of her, and then surrounded her with flyers and magic users. And I just kept missing. And so I had to egress out again. And then finally I was chipping away at her. The problem is she has such high defense, and it's so hard to hit her. And then plus with the bosses gaining health every turn, you've got to do enough damage each turn so that you're at least chipping away and making progress. Otherwise, you just got to egress. So that was the only one I had trouble with, but it was frustrating.
I had the same trouble.
Well, I think it was chapter 6 when I had to start grinding. There was was it Dragonia, or the city of the dragons, and the golems and Cain weren't taking hardly any damage, and that was when I had to start promoting them and stuff. And there's just some of the maps that are large. I think the first one in chapter 8, like everything's so spread out, and you're waiting for stuff to come in to you. And it's like, all right, come on, it takes so long. It's like, really, do we have to go to the guys that aren't going to move at all? Can't you just do a quick do? Because it's like, the cursor goes up, stops, takes a couple seconds, and then goes to the next guy. Same thing, and then jumps over the next guy. The same thing. It's like, these guys aren't going anywhere. Come on.
They didn't fix that on the Game Boy version by any chance?
Nope.
Okay.
They made some of the maps smaller, so it was a little bit easier. But for chapter 8, they were pretty faithful to the way they were on the Genesis. And like the Chimera trying to come down and get you in that battle, like it took 2 or 3 turns for them to even get in range before I could do anything. And even then, they were trying to stay off in the end. And thankfully for Hans and the magic users, they could cast out a little bit further. But like the first time you encounter the bats, that's annoying. Because you're like, okay, these guys aren't so bad, and that your characters miss them more. Especially the Game Boy Advance, they must have really ratcheted up the Flyer's dodge ability, because like I have a bat or a gargoyle surrounded and like miss.
Yeah.
But yeah, that sleeping things are just, dang, that is rough.
I feel like the chimeras, those are the worst. They're the worst because everybody misses them unless you're like doing magic, and they're difficult.
Yeah, I think the flying enemies generally have evade. I looked this up because I was like, what is the skill attribute, or the attribute that accounts for missing all the time? And I guess there's some evade thing, and the ones that fly, like bats, and apparently the Chimera too, they have a high evade, and so they're really frustrating. Missing is just, you're just wasting my turn. It took me long enough to get to this turn, and now it's wasted because I missed the whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, the flying guys were nasty, and I ended up using, magic never misses. I was telling Melissa as we were playing the end, magic doesn't miss, at least not in the Genesis version, not in my experience.
In the GBA version, it's just some of them are immune to certain types.
Yeah, okay.
And so it's just like, oh, great. All right, let me move my characters back so I can lure them out. Come on. I'm not going to hurt you, and then I can pounce on them. But, yeah, the Flyers got to be trouble. And, like, it's the second battle in Chapter 2 when you're in that cave, and there's lots of bats in a small area, and you got to cross over one square, and they can surround your guy, and you can't get to the bats. And so you can spend 3 or 4 turns. Oh, great. They put the guy to sleep. He can't attack. No one can get in range to attack.
Yeah.
Do I let this guy die, or do I keep him healed?
That was
some of those battles when they force you into a narrow spot and you got to come up through it.
Yeah, they did that a few times.
Run. Yeah, they did it several times, and it's just like, why? You just added like 5 turns to the battle that weren't necessary.
Right.
I noticed this last run, and I guess I might not have ever really noticed it before, but I noticed that Colossus battle right before Dark Soul is probably the hardest battle in the game, with all the, like Melissa was saying, with the Chimera, the Blue Dragon, the
Mhm.
3 Colossus heads,
That's the one with the 3 heads,
the
right? Yeah.
skeletons, the jets. I mean, and the jets too. Like they'll knock you out. The jets.
Yeah.
They can knock you out too and put you to sleep. I didn't have it happen to me this round, but I remember those things can knock you out too and hit you hard.
And they've got big movement, so they can get to you quick.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Not a fan
But
of the
I would
Jets.
agree that was the hardest battle, the worst battle.
The
Yeah.
And actually,
Colossus.
I reset 2 or 3 times because I had Elif and Taratsu, and I was trying to level them up, and the Chimera were making beelines to them.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd kill them in one hit. And I was like, well, I can't. How can I position them so that they're not in range? And every time you're like, okay, this is the spot. It's like, nope, they come around, do something else, and then
Yeah.
they're dead.
My Max character,
Mhm.
I named him Melissa, but he died like 3 or 4 times, and I think I died like maybe one other time in the whole entire part of the other parts of the game. I remember that it took away your gold, so that time
Mhm.
I had like reset from my save, but these times I had so much gold. Like after a while, you have so much gold, and you don't have
Right,
anything
doesn't
to do
matter.
with it. It didn't matter. Yeah, I was like, I'm just gonna keep going on and on.
Mhm.
Can we talk about death real quick? How does death work in this game? Melissa, tell us about death. How does it work?
So like usually like in an RPG, like let's say in a regular RPG, you're playing and your character dies and they get nothing. They don't get any experience from the game because you don't get experience until after like the final boss is killed, like in your battle. But here, as you keep going on, you get experience for every time you battle something. And so if you die, you keep that experience that you've banked, and you just don't get anything further on if your party keeps going. And as long as your main character stays alive, you can keep going. So I like at first I was like, oh, all my guys are dying. I have to like restart. And then Eric's like, no, they keep all their experience. Just keep going. Like it's not like they've lost that experience. And I was like, oh. So then I would just keep going a little bit to move on and then revive them, after the battle. And it would be
That's okay. That's what I was getting at. You can revive them after the battle.
Mhm.
There's another series, Fire Emblem, which has, I think, permadeath, which is once a character dies in battle, they're out of the game forever.
Well, I'm not playing
Right.
that game ever.
No,
No.
I couldn't play it. But these characters can be revived, right?
Yeah.
How'd you guys play it? Did you guys let them die, or did you like, no, I'm playing permadeath, I got to restart?
That would be an interesting way to play, and I think that's something Cap could do if he ever got bored and had an inkling for another RPG. 5-10 years, you might be good for it, Cap.
Maybe. I don't know. It took me 36 years to get through this RPG. We'll see.
Yeah.
So you guys didn't care about the characters dying. You were perfectly happy.
There's no real penalty. It's like, oh well, I can't. They're not going to get any more experience this round. I mean, the only big impact is when Max dies.
Yes.
You lose half your gold.
You lose half your gold. Yeah.
And you're out of the battle immediately.
Yep.
Yeah.
The battle
battle's
ends right
done.
there if Max
You get
dies,
sent
right?
back to the last church you visited.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Which you can actually use that to manipulate. Like, you can finish a battle and get sent back or die and get sent back to a previous church, so that you can, if that's where the weapon shop is or something, and you can do that. The GBA version, you can bank money, so you can go into your HQ and go talk to Nova and be like, here, Nova, put this money in the bank, and so you don't lose it, because when you die, you lose half of it. But if you don't have anything, you're losing half of nothing because it's in the bank. You can go make a withdrawal, which I deposited money in there because I was like, oh, hey, I can do this. And then it just stayed there.
Yeah.
You'd go fight a battle or two and you had plenty of money. Like Cap said,
Yeah.
you're not short on money, which is something with RPGs. It's like they need to give you something to do with that money.
Mhm.
Make me spend 100,000 gold or whatever and let me increase somebody's levels or bump somebody's stats or something.
Oh, there you
It's
go.
it's a waste. You have this stuff and you can't use it.
You can't
It's bad
use it,
enough
yeah.
that when we have these stockpiles of potions and stuff, we're like, I'm going to use this for the final boss. I was like, oh, I didn't need it. I had 50 of them, and there was awesome things, and I never used it.
I felt like the game was too easy. There wasn't a lot of challenge other than, like I said, the Michaela fight, but that was more of just like figuring out what to do. It wasn't like it was like I was getting destroyed. But like, because you could just revive your characters and it costs gold, but you got so much gold every time you killed an enemy that it didn't seem like it mattered. So I would just let people die, egress out, revive them, and then keep going. And it made for too easy of a game, in my opinion.
There wasn't really any serious penalties, right? You just go back into the battle and you right. That's it. There just wasn't very many serious penalties for death or for losing a battle. You just start it over again and continue on.
So, and in that instance, you didn't necessarily have to grind per se, because you could just like organically grind. You just go into the battle. Oh, when he died, just start again.
Start again, and eventually you'll be strong enough or smart enough or
Mm-hmm.
something, and you'll get through it, right?
Yeah, which is one of the nice things. Yeah, it makes it easy, but there's not like you can get to a battle and struggle with it, but if you keep going at it, you're gonna get enough experience. You're gonna level. Hopefully, you get nice stat increases, and you'll breeze through it. Because after that boss fight with Kane, like other than level 8, getting my characters up there, I didn't have any issues.
Even the final boss, I only did one attempt at it. I didn't have to egress out. Like I had my strategy of where I wanted to stand, and I got through it. Like even that was easy.
Yeah, and you learn quickly. Oh, what are those little boxes up there?
Yep.
So you just said a while ago. Spoilers for everybody, but this is where the skeletons spawn, and that was what I was going to do with Balbria. I was going to stick them on one of those spots, and I wouldn't have to worry about you kill the first one, you put somebody on it.
Yeah,
they don't come back.
Yep.
But he died, so I had to use. I think I used Elif and Taratsu.
Okay.
But in the Game Boy Advance version, they're not across from the side heads for Dark Dragon. They moved them up, so even if you're on those spots, you can't attack Dark Dragon. Also,
cute.
They position you right in front of Dark Dragon with 4 of your characters, and he gets to attack first.
Oh,
so
yeah, that was a terrible start to that battle for you.
Yeah, and I had to do that battle twice because the first time I got to him, I think I had 4 or 5 characters. And I was like, all right, I'm going to power through and see if I can just take out the middle head in this version. Nope. I killed it, but I couldn't get the other 2. And Max loses his voice because one of the additions with the story is really, like, when we get to the story part, I'll add more, but he can't talk anymore. He can't cast egress once that happens. And I forgot. I was like, why can't I do this? I was like, all right, bought 5 angel wings after that and stuck them on a bunch of people.
Yeah.
So if I needed to, I could egress.
Let's talk about the story. Story wasn't a big factor for me.
No, I always hear about that's why people play RPGs. The stories are so great, and I couldn't even tell you the story. If it was there, I just did not pay attention.
I feel like, the story is right at the beginning. I mean, you're going to one of the first gates of the Ancients, and that's kind of, you're investigating it. Dark Soul's screwing around with it. You stop them at that point, in which I don't know what really happened to that gate, because that's one of the gates of the Ancients, and throughout the game, you're trying to stop the resurrection of Dark Dragon, with Dark Soul getting in the way and Dark Soul's minions. And the stories, that's the main path, but then it becomes sub-stories with every area, because there might be like a specific enemy, like when you get to chapter 3 or chapter 4, when you go fight Elliot, he kind of starts to elaborate that, he's actually good, but their king is actually controlled by Dark Soul, which is Ramladu, all the way at the end of the game. So like, you're going through all these different defenses to stop you of Dark Soul's meddling, but he's also messing with these kingdoms where they're turning against you. So there is a sense of story, and the story also comes in the form of the characters when you talk to them, like, Ernst, he has a story, Xylo has a story. They all have their own little story. And not to mention some of the characters in the town, like Boku, he's following you throughout the entire game. He saves you at one point. And some of these other characters you talk to in the background, like Shade Abbey's one of my favorite scenes early on in the game. One of the friars later in the game, I want to say he's right there in that last kingdom that locks you up. But he said that his dad or his grandpa or something, a relation, was actually the priest at Shade Abbey. So it made your mind go back to that scene, that battle. And some of the other characters, if you go and talk to them all in the town, they might say, oh, I got family in this town, and it's somewhere you had already been. So there's always these links that take you back to those other scenes in the game. And I feel like there's a sense of story, but it's more of like a journey at the same time, kind of like a Lord of the Rings charge. I mean, you're stuck with battles and protagonists in between, but when you get to the end of it all, that's who's been driving the whole thing.
And like Walt said, like Dark Soul basically has these people as puppets, and so he's controlling them because Rumbladu, you finish him off, and he's like, "Oh, well, that's worn off, but I'm dying now. Sorry." And Elliot, he's like, "This is what the king wants. I'm an obedient, basically general or whatever. So I'm gonna do what he wants, but you need to stop Dark Soul. He's coming." Now, the Game Boy Advance version adds a lot to the story. So big spoilers. Kane is your brother, which they don't touch on, but like you feel like there's something there. It's like they didn't have enough space or something on a Genesis cart, and so they couldn't include it. So the Game Boy Advance version, they flesh out a bunch. But not only that, you guys are from, I forget, 100 years in the past, 1,000 years in the past. Anyways, you enter some sleeping chambers. Adam is one of the robots that was sent to protect you and watch over you while you slept, along with another army of like 100 other robots like Adam. Dark Soul is also there. All of them wait for time to pass and come up. Oh, and not only that, but Kane and Max's people, they made Dark Dragon. Here we're making this thing, and this is what it's supposed to do. Oh no, it's doing this other thing, and they want to.
No.
They seal him away at that point, but that's why the Game Boy Advance version is the resurrection of Dark Dragon, because he's coming back again. So they put Kane and Max in these capsules, which you see the capsules. Oh, I forget which battle it is. There's a platform, and there's like 2 cylinder things on them.
Yeah,
those were their sleeping capsules.
In the Game Boy Advance version?
Yeah, but okay. I'm pretty sure that they're in the Genesis version, but there's just a platform, and there's 2 like gray cylinders on this platform. And it's like, oh my gosh, that explains so much more. Oh, and so jumping to Elliot, you know that fortress that you have to enter after that, and it looks like it's all run down and stuff?
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Your party gets a bomb and blows up the front, and that's why that fortress is in ruins. You guys did that.
Wow.
Because the door was, they had it blocked, so you couldn't get in. You're like, oh, hey, here's a bomb. Go take care of it. You, boom, and everything's in ruins.
I wonder if some of this was done. Yeah, I'm very interested now in maybe playing some of the other games. We'll talk about.
Yeah.
To see how they're fitting that together with the Game Boy Advance version. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I know. I want to go and play that now, dude. Like, I haven't played it. I need to play it.
The extra story fleshes out a lot of that stuff because, and the first time through, if you're not reading and talking to everybody, you can miss so much.
And the books. Read the books.
Yes,
too.
books.
Like, there's like so many little clues to what's going on too. Like, like I search everything, talk to everything. That's why, like, I feel like, story wise, it's there. It just all meshes, not as like a straight in your face, when you kind of put it all together in the end. It's like, dude, that's a world in its own on a journey, like I said, like a Lord of the Rings quest, learning a lot as you go.
I had no idea it was that deep. I read through the bookshelves and stuff. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
But most of the times it just said a title of a book or something. I don't remember it.
Some of them are important.
Okay.
But Narsha, the new character that you get, is the daughter of Ramladu.
Okay.
And she knows that her father has been taken over, he's been possessed. And so that's why she and Zuika and Warlock are coming to join you. I'm trying to think. There was so much stuff. I was like, whoa. There's like so much more information in the GBA version. So if nothing else, watch somebody's playthrough, and just because some of those story elements that they add is just like, whoa, this is awesome. Because I think, if I remember in the Genesis version, before Kane dies, he says something, and you're like, it's like there's something missing there. There's some more text,
Yeah.
Like he was about to say something that was going to fill in some of these gaps, and like it's like, oh, we ran out of space, we can't add it. Sorry.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of lore and there's a lot more to come. When we move into the, I just want to talk about like the design elements of the game, graphics and sound. Does anybody want to comment on the graphics and sound of the game?
I thought the graphics were great. I really enjoyed how your character changed their look when you promoted them. I thought that was a really nice touch. All the action sequences when you battle people was really cool. I liked the sound, but I will say I think they needed more variety in the battle music. Because what was it, basically just one song every battle? Like maybe it was different for the final battle. I can't remember, but otherwise it's the same song every time. It's like you could have mixed it up a little bit.
Yeah. So yeah, the music didn't really do anything for me. It was what do they say, serviceable?
It was just kind of like
was,
maybe 2 or 3 tunes.
Yeah, I thought the music was good. It went well. It added some atmosphere in some parts, especially I think when some of the characters were about to die, like you'd have that nice change over to, you know, the sad or melancholy music.
Did that happen in the Genesis version? I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah. Like when you go to kill Elliot, he talks to you, you know, and it switches to that music, and it's
you mean okay.
You know, and I feel like when you're talking to somebody too and they join your party, you know, that little chime it plays like it's happy, but there's also situations where the character joins you in a moment of, you know, somebody had died or anger or something. Like the chime of the music, how they join you is different under the emotion that character was under. Like there's a sad tone that they play. There's the happy, joyous tone, and then there's I want to say there's one other tone. I can't remember right off the top of my head which one that is. I think it's that sad middle tone, but yeah, it's two. I'm thinking there's a third one, but
yeah, I don't think the music is like the best ever, but I think it's good enough that it's not intrusive. And so like there's probably more music than you guys realize and sound, but if you're we're trying to get through it quickly, so we're also trying to kind of push through it a little bit. So we may not have noticed as much, especially when you go back and play, you know, your second or third time, you start to notice more and more stuff. But yeah, I think Cap nailed, you know, the animations for the fights are great. The magic casts are great. They're all nice. They look nice. The sprite work is really nice. I think the sprite work is still better on the Genesis than it was on the Game Boy Advance. You know, that may have to do with the smaller screen. So everything's a little bit, you know, shrunk down or chibi or whatever.
I thought the graphics are beautiful. I always have loved the graphical style of the game. It's very colorful. All the sprites are very detailed. I mean, I'm looking at some of these characters on the map and these chimera or these things, and it's like you can kind of see the 3 heads there on a 16 by 16 or whatever size it is. These are nicely detailed or nicely drawn sprites. So I've always liked the style of the graphics on it.
I didn't feel any of the environments really replicated another scene in the game either. You know, when you're traveling over land, you know, you got your hills, your trees, grass, and those kind of areas. You know, when I see those, I think like when you get in a battle, they all have their own specific background as well. Like if you're fighting on the brown mounds, the mountains, when you go have those fights, you're fighting in cliffs. You know, you go fight in the trees. You know, if you're over the pine looking trees, you're fighting in a forest. If you fight out in the grassy areas, you're fighting in like a meadow like scene. You know, and like I don't feel like that was bad use of those backdrops. You know, all the castles and specific zone areas within castles or realms or whatever all had their own special backdrops, you know.
That's nice.
And high detail too. Like if you look at them close, I think some of those backdrops had flashing, like when you get like to some of the ancients, like high technology, the higher technology stuff.
Yeah.
And that made me think too, it's pretty cool in that game when you think about the fact that they obviously had a higher technological level at one time, and they regressed, like they had a reset somewhere.
You're right. I mean, there's a robot. It's like, where did that come from? All right. Well, I was going to move into final impressions and recommendations, and then I wanted to talk about where we would go, what other games people could play. So let's start with you then, Owazrim. Then what's your impression of the game, and which version do you recommend then?
I'm going to recommend the Genesis version, and it may be solely because of just how much nostalgia I have for that game. Because when I got that game and got it home, and the first time playing through it, and I think my brother was there for a lot of it, just watching. We may have taken turns, I don't know, but probably not because it was my game. But the first time you promote somebody, the first time you see, the level 2 spell being cast and hitting a bunch of guys, the first time you see just the changes in the background, like Welch was talking about, how it matched the terrain that you were on. There was so many firsts, and I played through the second Shining Force. I like how straightforward the first one is. There's not a ton of branching. I liked it enough that I went through and I played it with just the hero doing all of the killing.
Wow. Yeah.
It's like, I don't like, even with quality of life improvements in the Game Boy Advance, I wish I could take a lot of those and put them in the Genesis version. I think I'd take the Genesis version over the GBA version. Although GBA with all the extra story stuff is really nice.
Yeah.
But now I've got the story stuff in here, so I can just play the Genesis version.
And know that all that stuff is back there.
Yeah.
Out there. Okay. What about you, Master Welch? What are your impressions of the game?
Dude, I mean, just that game over the years, thinking about how I played it when I was a teenager and how it hit me and how I look at it now. And I admit now it doesn't feel like as difficult or is much of a strategy, because I think it's also just because I played it so much. But when I played it as a teenager, like that ending, dude, like it almost kind of hits you a little bit. You're just like, what, dude, what? And then watching the credits, that was like such a relief. But then at the same time, it also made you wonder, like, well, did everybody else ever know about what happened to him? And I feel like as the series went on, that gets kind of summed up possibly in, Shining Force CD. But like just there was some emotion to that, because I never played a game where your main hero that you took that time building up, you might have actually named it after yourself back in the day, like, yeah, that's me, and like you took all that time and care and to see how it ends, and like the meaning of that too in that time. And for like the people that might have been playing it at that age, I mean, that was a true act of heroic, through a game, they projected that. And I felt like that was something I had never seen in a game at that point. And
you might be right.
It was just, when you look back on it, even this many years, it's, I don't know, it just is, it's still a good game. Those backdrops and everything, you can look into it a little deeper. The strategy's still there, even though you might have learned it, and you can now move on to trying new stuff, with the game and experimenting more. There's plenty of space in there to take a lot of different characters and take your time and dedicate to a few that you might not have before. I haven't played the game GBA 1. I bought it. I would say at first glance I wasn't excited about the GBA 1, but it sounds like I should give it a shot.
Yeah.
And I think that's just my partialness because of the Genesis, And I feel like the story with that is like I rented it so much that, my parents got it for me as a gift. My dad went out in a blizzard to Toys R Us, which was all the way across town, to get it like a week before Christmas. And I guess, he got the last copy in the store, and so that was a really cool thing to do. And it was a awesome gift to get, because I'd been just renting it,
So did you ever name your character something like stupid? I mean, we're like, hey, stupid, come here. We got to go do this. Stupid, what are you doing? Stupid, wake up. Did you ever do
Probably
that?
not. No.
Not just stupid, but just names that were just like, so when people were like when you read the dialogue, it was just funny.
Yeah, I never.
That's funny.
One thing I did do though is I did play it on Sega Channel, and the way Sega Channel worked with the cable, it managed to cache my save a couple times. Like I'd go back to it and my save was still there somehow.
Interesting.
Interesting. I didn't know it was on Sega Channel.
Now, Owazrim, did you name your character stupid things sometimes?
Oh yeah. I played through it so much, and then you're like, oh, it's gonna be so funny when it gets to this point, and like, stupid, why'd you do that?
I heard someone once say, name all your characters in Final Fantasy VII Cloud and try to understand the story. Anyway, Captain, this is your first time playing it in 2025. Should anybody play this game today? Did it age? You have no nostalgia, and I know you don't like RPGs. Did this game age well? Is this worth playing today?
Well, I'm gonna mention that I hate the phrase "hasn't aged well."
Oh,
I think Owazrim and I have talked about this before, but that'll be a long rant, so I'm gonna skip that part.
Okay, I'm curious to hear that someday.
Yeah, we can talk sometime. I think it's worth playing. Like I said, I had more fun with it than I thought I would. Mm-hmm. Every day, like when I finished playing and like the next day would come, I looked forward to playing it more. So good. There are some positives. I really like the animation. I like the variety of characters, but there's still a lot I don't like about it. And granted, this could be just the way all RPGs were at the time. Like I said, I don't have enough experience, but I thought the item management was terrible. Having to like give stuff to people and like constantly go into menus. The fact that you can only hold 4 items at once, that was bad. I thought some of the battles were just way too big. I mean, there were sometimes when you're going across land and there was kind of forest in the way, and it could take 5 to 10 turns before you got somewhere, before you could do anything. I was like, okay, sure, maybe my flyer could, but it's like, what about the rest of my people? I want to get them involved too. You know, I just don't want the flyers getting all the experience. So, and then because like, I don't remember if it's the speed or agility, how it determines who attacks when. But like sometimes, like, you know, it would let you attack, and then all of a sudden it'd go all the way to the other side of the map, and let them attack, and then go back to you. And it was just like, even though it was only like a second or two, that transition between characters, it's like, why can't you just immediately just go to that character? Why do you have to show sliding across the battlefield? I didn't like that. There was one thing else I was going to say, but I can't remember what it was. But so yeah, there's some big complaints on my end. Oh, it was too easy. I thought I wanted more of a challenge. I felt like someone who has little experience with RPG, I had pretty much no problem with it. And I figured maybe I would have some challenge. And like I said, maybe some effects to actually dying, like some reasons that maybe you want to keep people alive. But overall, yeah, too easy and just some nitpicks here and there. But I think it's still worth playing.
I think it's a great little game to play. You know, if you're looking to dip your toes in an RPG, this is a great one. It's not that difficult, especially if you do take some time to grind. And I enjoyed it. I get frustrated when battles are like super hard. I know some people like that, but I get more frustrated. And so for me, this was a good pace for me. I mean, yeah, there are some annoyances like only 4 slots of storage and whatnot, but it's an old, it's an older game. So, but I thought it was great. I think if you have the chance to play it, then take a little time and do it, because I really enjoyed it. I think it's good.
Are you motivated to go and play any other games in the series, Melissa?
I don't know. I'm not really like one to be like, oh, I mean, I played the latest God of War, and God of War Ragnarok is waiting for me, and I haven't even done that. So I'm not.
So that's higher on the list.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like,
as it should be.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I got my feel of Shining Force, so.
Okay. Well, I had tried playing Shining in the Darkness, which is a dungeon crawler, and it was the first game in the series, apparently. Now I've played this one, which is this strategy RPG, and I really enjoyed this enough that I've already started playing Shining Force 2, and I've never played any of those games, but I went, and I don't normally go right into a sequel. I usually like to take a break, but I decided to go right into Shining Force 2 and give it a try. And I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that because there are quite a few games in this series going forward. And if you do have a hankering for more Shining Force, even the strategy game, there are several more coming. I mentioned Shining Force 2 on the Sega Genesis. Shining Force 3, which I hear, maybe Owazrim or somebody can comment. I hear that's like the pinnacle of the series. That's like the thing to play. And then Master Welch, you mentioned Shining Force CD. So have either of you guys or anybody played any of those games? And where should people go next, in your opinion, in the Shining Force series?
Probably CD. I think by release date, CD was either right after Shining Force 2 within like a quarter, like a business quarter, or it might have been a little bit before Shining Force 2. I can't remember the exact order.
I looked up a quick timeline. And it goes Shining Force 1, and then CD, Final Conflict 2, something about wisdom characters, and then Shining in the Darkness. So Shining in the Darkness came out first, but chronologically it takes place after the second one, which is weird.
Really?
Because I got super excited because I'd played Shining in the Darkness first and beat it. And so the first time you see Dark Soul and Shining Force, I was like, oh, what? Not knowing, I didn't know the two were related, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. I would play Shining Force CD next.
Personally. Now that's a remake of the Game Gear games. Is that correct?
Yep. It has it has the 3 scenarios. Yep.
Yeah.
Or two scenarios because one of them was never put on the disc.
Released in the States, but Japan got 3 until they got the Sega CD had the compilation.
Okay. And I actually have that one. That a guy in Spain made a translation of Final Conflict. Translated in English. Really? And he ported the Game Gear version to Master System. So I got a Master System one to play eventually. But I mean, the thing about those Game Gear ones, man, I have not committed to even playing it because just the music, it's just that high pitch pinging of Game Gear, and I'm like, gosh, I don't know if my ears could handle that forever, and on repeat too,
I beat the one that got released here in the States, and it was fun, but I was also glad when it was over. Okay. It was like 30 battles, 28 battles or something, and there's no you go from battle to a town screen where you can revive, save, shop, or whatever, and then you jump straight back into another battle. And so if you just want battles, it's like back-to-back battles with a small break to save, restore characters, upgrade your weapons, and then you're right back in it. There's no walking around and talking to people.
Okay. It sounds like there's actually quite a few games out there that people can look into. In the strategy realm, there's some action RPG versions of them. There's some dungeon crawlers, and there's a lot out there to check into. So
Shining in the Darkness,
Google it.
Is the dungeon crawler.
Yeah.
And I rented, for me, that was a game I rented a ton. And at the time, I think we had a fax machine, and I rented the booklet too, so I could make copies of the booklet. And I still got them in the page protectors. I've got the maps that I laid out the grid and did the whole grid for the entire map, wrote down where everything was. I think is there 8 or 9 levels?
Yeah. I don't know, but it's a big map making exercise, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a whole. Each level is a full size of 8.5 by 11 grid paper, graph paper, and I love that. And actually I didn't beat it until I was in high school. A buddy in high school had it, and we swapped games, and then I ended up buying the copy from him because he wasn't playing it anymore. But the guy went and destroyed all my weapons. He went through and used them and saved afterwards. And so I had these awesome weapons and stuff and high level characters, and he just ruined it.
Terrible.
But I'd love to go back and do it again. Now it's like the time investment. I've started several times. I started memorizing the layouts and stuff, but Shining the Darkness, if you like dungeon crawlers, it's a simple version. You're not going to have a huge challenge. But hey, you have 8 inventory slots.
Ooh.
Hey, twice
There
as
you go.
many.
So they went
All right.
backwards with Shining.
They went backward, yeah.
Yeah.
But you're going to put 4 of those are going to be equipment because you have a helmet, a chest piece, your weapon, and something, a shield or an arm guard usually.
Mm.
You got to play Shining the Holy Ark too, man.
Yeah.
That one's awesome.
Isn't that a dungeon crawler too?
Yeah, that's another Shining dungeon crawler
That's
on
a Sega Saturn.
I love that one. I played that a few times actually.
Okay.
That's really
I
good,
didn't
man. It's
play
got a
that one.
lot of good music, and you actually explore in that one, like first person, the towns.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah,
So lots of good stuff out there in the Shining series.
Yeah. All right. So that is going to do it for this episode of the Cartridge Club Game of the Month podcast. Let's quickly mention a few of our upcoming games. February is FPS February, first person shooter, where the club Patreons have chosen BioShock Infinite. March brings March Madness NES 40th anniversary celebration games. And finally, we have the honor of announcing that April is our Zelda month. And this time, it's the Skyward Sword. And I think Eric and I will be playing that. So
Yeah.
It's a great game.
We're gonna play it.
I've heard that it is a great game. Like
Yeah.
lots of people have said it's a great
Mhm.
game.
Don't listen
And
to
no-
Ryan.
I don't think
Yeah.
anybody has said it's terrible.
No one says it's there.
Yeah.
We're gonna play. Yeah, we're excited to play it.
Again, if you'd like to get involved with the club, I'd encourage you to follow us on X, formerly Twitter, at Cartridge Club NA. You can also visit our Discord for all kinds of discussion about past, present, and future games of the month. To those of you interested in supporting the club beyond a review on the podcast app of your choice, I'd like to mention that the club is entirely funded by pledges made from members of our community. We are extremely grateful to those supporters, and if you're interested in becoming one of them, please look into how you can do that at patreon.com/Cartridge Club. And finally, Eric and I would like to thank our guests today. Master Welch, where can we find you on the socials?
Master Welch on Twitch, YouTube. Sometimes I post on X, but
Very
nothing
nice.
major there.
Okay. And Owazrim, how about you?
Owazrim on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter or X, Twitch and Twitter. Also Scanline Heroes for Twitch. Search Owazrim, and I don't think there's another one. There's only one.
You're the only one. All right. And Captain, what about you?
I'm Captain Algebra everywhere: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Blue Sky. Just search Captain Algebra. I don't think there's another one of those either.
I'm Mrs. QDawg, MRSQDAWG on the socials as well. Eric?
I'm a Mighty QDawg, DAWG on the socials. I don't know which ones we're on X. I'm on Blue Sky now, but
Yeah.
I haven't used it much. And we have a YouTube channel called Mighty QDawg, I guess, where we don't really talk about video games anymore on there, but we update sometimes.
We do a blog every once in a while. We have pickups every once in a while. So.
And of course, you can find us in the Cartridge Club Discord
yes,
often too.
Then to everyone listening, we look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you for joining us. CC Unite.